Welcome to another video. His Mississippi 1891 says the darkness swallowed everything whole, and into that darkness they released 3 Rottweilers sent to hunt down a 12-year-old girl. Her name was Amelia. The dogs weren't just animals. They were killers, trained from puppies to tear flesh from bone. They had never failed. Never. The plantation owner leaned back in his chair and told his overseer they'd be back in an hour, maybe 2, dragging what remained of that child behind them. 8 hours passed. Then the dogs came back. But what they carried with them, what they dragged out of those woods, made even the cruelest men on that plantation stumble backward like they'd seen the face of God and found it angry. Something happened in those 8 hours. Something that would crack open the foundation of everything those men believed. Something that started with a girl who wasn't even supposed to exist. 2. Amelia came into this world in 1879. Now, you need to understand something. The year 1879 was 14 years after slavery ended in America. 14 years after the chains were supposed to have fallen. But on the Thornhill plantation, buried deep in the backwoods of rural Mississippi, no one bothered to tell the enslaved people that they'd been set free. This plantation sat so far off the map that towns might as well have been made of mist. Thick forests wrapped around it like fingers. Swampland stretched for miles in every direction. The nearest sheriff, he was paid to stare the other way. Mail never came. Visitors, they never arrived. 43 human beings were born, lived, and died on that land believing they were property. Believing escape meant a bullet or a rope. Believing because every single day, someone with a whip and a gun told them so. Amelia's mother died bringing her into the world. Her father was sold off before she could even crawl, so an elderly woman named Ruth raised her. A woman with eyes that had seen too much and a voice that only dropped to a whisper when she spoke of things that mattered. Ruth told Amelia stories. Stories about a war that was supposed to have freed them all. Stories about a world beyond the trees where black people walked without chains. But Ruth also told her something else, pressing those words into her like a brand. Never speak this out loud. Thomas Thornhill has killed men for less. Amelia worked in the big house. She scrubbed floors until her knees bled. She carried water buckets until her arms screamed. She served meals to people who acted like she wasn't there, unless they needed something. And then she was lucky to eat their scraps. She learned to make herself invisible, to fold her body into corners, to breathe without making sound. But inside, something was burning. A question Ruth had planted years ago, deep in the soil of her heart. If we're free, why are we still here? October 14th, 1891, is the night Amelia chose. She slipped out just past midnight, took nothing with her. No food, no blanket, not even shoes. Just the thin cotton dress she'd been working in all day and the fire in her chest. The moon was nothing but a sliver, barely there. The darkness pressed against her eyes so thick she couldn't see her own hands in front of her face. Didn't matter. She ran anyway. She ran because staying meant dying slow. The kind of dying that happens a little bit every day until one morning you realize there's nothing left of you to kill. Running meant maybe dying fast, but at least it meant she got to choose. She headed east. Ruth had told her once that east led to the river, and the river led to towns where black people lived free. 2 days on foot, Ruth had said, if you knew the way. Amelia didn't know the way, but she ran. Back at the plantation, a woman woke to use the outhouse. Her eyes drifted to Amelia's empty pallet, then to the main house, then to the kitchen. Then she did what fear had carved into her bones. She woke the overseer. Cyrus Gann, a man who smiled when he hurt people. 9 years he'd been running Thornhill's plantation. 9 years of catching runaways. 9 years of enjoying every second of it. He walked slow to the dog pen, didn't run. He wanted to savor this. 3 Rottweilers stood behind iron bars. Brutus, Caesar, Nero. Each over 100 pounds. Trained since they could open their eyes to track and attack. Cyrus fed them raw meat and kept them hungry. Hungry dogs were focused dogs. He grabbed Amelia's blanket from her pallet and held it to their noses. Their eyes went sharp. Cyrus swung the gate open. Find her. The dogs exploded into the night. Tutu Amelia heard them. She was maybe a mile deep when the barking started. Distant at first. Something that could almost be ignored if you didn't know what it meant. But then closer. Then so close she could hear their paws hammering the earth like drums of death. She ran faster. Branches tore at her face like claws. Thorns ripped her feet open. She couldn't see where she was going. The darkness was absolute, so she just went, tripping over roots, stumbling over rocks, getting up, going again. The barking got louder. Then she hit a creek. Cold water, moving fast. Ruth had told her something about water. Water can hide your scent. And Amelia didn't think. She just jumped. The current grabbed her and pulled her downstream. She clawed at the water until her fingers found a rock, and she held on. The water soaked through her dress, turning it into a weight dragging her down. She stayed there, chest deep, shaking, listening. The barking stopped. For one long moment, there was nothing but the creek and her own heart slamming against her ribs. Then she heard it. Sniffing. The dogs were at the edge of the creek upstream. Pacing. Circling. Trying to pick up the scent again. Amelia slipped deeper into the water. Let the current take her farther downstream. Kept her head just above the surface. The cold was eating her fingers, numbing her feet until she couldn't feel them anymore. But she kept going. The dogs found the scent again. Splashed into the creek. Coming downstream, Amelia pulled herself out on the opposite bank and ran. Her dress clung to her like a second skin made of ice. Every step felt like dragging stones. Her legs cramped. Her lungs burned. But she didn't stop. She ran another hour, maybe more. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only running and the sound of dogs getting closer and closer, and she saw it. A cabin. Sitting in a small clearing, half collapsed, vines crawling up its walls like fingers. The roof had caved in on one side. The door hung off its hinges. Abandoned. Amelia didn't care. She ran inside and pulled the broken door shut behind her. Pressed her back against the wall and slid down to the dirt floor. Her chest heaved. Her whole body shook. The barking was close now. Maybe 50 yards. Maybe less. She looked around. Nothing inside. No furniture. No tools. Just dirt and rotting wood and shadows pressing in. She crawled into the farthest corner, curled into a ball, closed her eyes, and prayed. First time in years. She didn't even know if God listened to girls like her. But she prayed anyway. The barking stopped. She heard them outside now, claws scraping against wooden walls. Sniffing at the gaps in the door. She held her breath. Then one of them barked. Sharp, vicious, certain. They'd found her. The door exploded inward. Brutus came through first. Teeth bared, eyes wild. Caesar and Nero right behind him. The tiny cabin filled with snarls and snapping jaws. Amelia screamed and pressed herself into the corner. Nowhere to go. Brutus lunged, and the floor gave way. Amelia fell through rotten wood and dropped into darkness. She hit the ground hard. The air punched out of her lungs. She gasped, coughed, tried to understand where she was. Above her, the dogs barked and clawed at the hole. But they didn't follow. The hole was too small. A cellar. Pitch black. She couldn't see anything. Felt around with her hands. Dirt walls. Dirt floor. It smelled like mold and decay and something older. Something she couldn't name. But it was deep. 10 feet down, maybe more. The dogs couldn't reach her. She sat there in the dark, shaking, listening to them rage above. Hours passed. The dogs didn't leave. They stayed at the edge of that hole, barking, growling, waiting. Amelia's body ached. Her feet bled. Her dress was still wet and cold. She wrapped her arms around herself and waited. Then the barking changed. Got quieter. Uncertain. The dogs were sniffing at something else now. Distracted, she heard them move away from the hole. Claws on the cabin floor. Then silence. Complete, absolute silence. Amelia didn't move, didn't trust it, stayed in that cellar, breathing as quiet as she could. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. Then, a voice. Girl, a woman's voice, old, rough, coming from above. Girl, you down there? Amelia didn't answer, couldn't tell if it was a trick. I ain't gonna hurt you. Them dogs is gone, you can come up now. Her throat was too dry to speak. She swallowed hard. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who ain't supposed to be here neither. Come on up. I got water. Amelia hesitated. Then she reached up, found a piece of wood sticking out from the wall, and pulled herself up. Climbed slow, careful, until she could see through the hole. A face looked down at her. Old black woman. Silver hair. Deep lines around her eyes like rivers on a map. She reached down and pulled Amelia out of that cellar like she weighed nothing. Amelia stood on shaking legs, looked around. The dogs were gone. The woman held out a tin cup. Drink. Amelia took it. The water was warm, but it was the best thing she'd ever tasted. She drank until the cup was empty. Where'd the dogs go? She asked. The woman smiled. Not a happy smile. Sad and knowing. I sent them away. How? Same way I send away everything that comes looking for me. I know things. Things that scare dogs. Things that scare men, too. Amelia stared at her. My name's Esther. I've been living in these woods near 40 years. Was enslaved once, long time ago. I ran. They sent dogs after me too. But I learned how to survive. How to hide. How to fight back in ways they don't understand. Amelia's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the dirt floor. Are they coming back? She asked. The dogs. No. I put something in the air they don't like. Old root magic, my grandmother taught me. But the men, they gonna come eventually. They always do. What do I do? Esther knelt in front of her, put a hand on her shoulder. You rest. Then you keep running, but this time you run smart. I'll show you the way. Woo-too. Amelia slept for 2 hours on the dirt floor of that broken cabin. When she woke, dawn was bleeding through the cracks. Esther sat near the door, watching the trees. An old rusted knife in her hand, but sharp. You could tell by the way she held it. They'll come soon, Esther said without turning. The dogs went back. The men gonna want to know why. Amelia sat up. Her body screamed. Every muscle tight. Her feet swollen and crusted with dried blood. She looked down at them and felt tears coming. Pushed them back down. How far's the river? Amelia asked. 2 days if you move fast. 3 if you don't. But you ain't going to the river. Amelia looked at her. Why not? 'Cause that's where they expect runaways to go. They'll have men waiting. You go to the river, you get caught, or worse. Then where do I go? Esther turned. Her eyes were hard, but not unkind. North. There's a settlement about 4 days from here. Free black folks. They don't ask questions. They don't turn people away. But the path is rough. Swampland. Gators. Snakes. Most people don't make it. Most people don't make it here either. Amelia said. Esther smiled a little. You got some fire in you. Good. You'll need it. She stood and walked to the corner. Moved some loose boards and pulled out a small sack. Inside was dried meat, hard bread, a tin of water. She handed it to Amelia. This gets you through 2 days if you're careful. After that, you find food yourself. You know what plants you can eat. Amelia shook her head. Esther sighed. Then you learn fast or you starve. She knelt down and started wrapping Amelia's feet with strips torn from an old blanket. Rough cloth, but better than nothing. "Why you helping me?" Amelia asked. Esther didn't answer right away. Tied off the cloth and sat back. "'Cause somebody helped me once. Long time ago. And I swore if I ever got the chance, I'd do the same. That's all." She stood and walked back to the door. "You need to go now. They're coming. I can feel it." Amelia stood. Her legs shook, but they held. She took the sack and slung it over her shoulder. "What about you?" "I'll be fine. I always am." Amelia walked to the door. Stopped. "Look back." "Thank you." Esther nodded. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you make it." Amelia stepped out of the cabin and into the woods. The morning air was cool. Birds sang. For one moment, it almost felt peaceful. Then she heard it. Voices. Men's voices. Far away, but getting closer. She ran. Tutu Esther watched her disappear into the trees. Then she turned and walked back into the cabin, sat down in the center of the room and waited. She'd done this before. Knew what was coming. 15 minutes later, Cyrus Jan arrived with 5 other men. Guns and torches even though it was daylight. They surrounded the cabin. Cyrus kicked the door open and stepped inside. Saw Esther sitting there calm as anything. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Where's who?" Cyrus raised his rifle and pointed it at her face. "The girl. The dogs tracked her here. Where is she?" Esther looked at him like he was a child throwing a tantrum. "Ain't no girl here, just me. And I've been here alone for years. Your dogs must have lost the scent." Cyrus looked around, saw the hole in the floor, walked over and looked down. Empty. He turned back. "You're lying. Believe what you want. Don't make it true." One of the other men stepped forward. "Cyrus, we're wasting time. The girl's long gone. Let's go." Cyrus stared at Esther for a long moment, then lowered his rifle. "If I find out you helped her, I'll come back, and I won't be kind." Esther said nothing. Cyrus and his men left. Esther listened to their footsteps fade. Then she stood, grabbed her knife, and walked out the back. She had her own running to do now. Amelia moved through the woods as fast as her broken feet would let her. The cloth wrappings helped, but every step still hurt. She followed the direction Esther had pointed. North, toward the swamp, toward something that might be freedom or might be death. Didn't let herself think about it too much. By midday, the trees changed. Grew thicker, darker. The ground turned soft and wet. She smelled the swamp before she saw it. Rot and standing water, and things that had died a long time ago. She stopped at the edge and stared. It stretched out in front of her like a black mirror. Trees rose out of the water, roots twisted and gnarled. Moss hung from branches like old curtains. The water was still. Too still. She knew what that meant. Gators. 2 choices: go through or go around. Going around would take days. Days she didn't have. She stepped into the water. Warm, came up to her knees, then her waist, then her chest. The bottom was soft mud that sucked at her feet with every step. She kept her arms above the water and moved slow. Didn't want to make noise, didn't want to attract attention. Something brushed against her leg. She froze. Looked down but couldn't see through the dark water. Waited. The thing moved away. She kept walking. 3 hours to cross that swamp. When she finally pulled herself onto dry land on the other side, she collapsed. Whole body shaking. The cloth wrappings on her feet had come loose and floated away somewhere in that black water. Her dress was covered in mud and slime. She smelled like death. She lay there a long time. The sun was setting. She knew she needed to move, find shelter before dark, but her body wouldn't respond. She was so tired, so hungry, so broken. Then she heard it, footsteps. She forced herself to sit up. A figure emerged from the trees. A man, black tall, carried a rifle. Amelia's heart sank. She tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't work. The man stopped a few feet away, looked her up and down. "You running?" he asked. Amelia didn't answer, didn't know if she could trust him. "It's all right," he said. "I ain't gonna hurt you. I'm running too." He lowered his rifle and set it on the ground, then sat down across from her. "My name's Marcus. Been free 6 months now, heading north to the settlement." "You headed that way too?" Amelia nodded slowly. "How far?" 3 more days if we move steady. Less if we push hard, but you look like you ain't got much push left in you." "I'll make it," Amelia said. Marcus studied her face, then reached into his pack and pulled out a piece of dried fish. Handed it to her. "Eat. You ain't gonna make it anywhere on an empty stomach." Amelia took it and ate. Salty and tough, but it was food. She ate slow, savoring every bite. "Where'd you come from?" Marcus asked. "Thornhill Plantation." Marcus's face changed. Surprise, then anger. "Thornhill? That place is supposed to be abandoned. Everybody knows the war freed the slaves 30 years ago." "Not there," Amelia said. "Nobody told us. Nobody came. We didn't know." Marcus stared at her. "How many people still there?" 43. Maybe less now. People die. They don't get replaced." Marcus stood, paced back and forth like he wanted to break something. "That son of a..." He stopped himself, took a deep breath. "We gotta tell somebody. When we get to the settlement, we gotta tell somebody. They won't believe us." Amelia said, "Nobody ever believes us." "They will. 'Cause I'll make 'em." Amelia looked at him. Wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe someone would care. But she'd learned a long time ago that wanting something didn't make it true. Marcus sat back down. Rest. Rest here tonight. Move at first light. I'll keep watch. You sleep." "I can't sleep," Amelia said. "Every time I close my eyes, I hear the dogs. The dogs are gone. They always come back." Marcus didn't argue, just nodded. "Then we stay awake together." They sat in silence as the sun disappeared and darkness came. The woods filled with sounds. Crickets, frogs, owls, things rustling in bushes. Amelia jumped at every noise. Marcus stayed calm. He'd been doing this longer. Knew which sounds mattered and which didn't. Around midnight, Marcus spoke. "You got family back there?" "No. They're all gone. Dead or sold, I don't know which." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm out now." "That's all that matters." Marcus looked at her. "You're strong. Stronger than most people I've met. You're gonna make it." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do." Amelia didn't respond. Pulled her knees to her chest and stared into the darkness. Somewhere out there, Cyrus and his men were looking for her. Somewhere out there, the dogs were resting, waiting to be sent out again. Somewhere out there, 42 people were still living in chains, believing that's all there was. She thought about Ruth. Wondered if Ruth knew she'd run. Wondered if Ruth was proud or terrified or both. Wondered if she'd ever see her again. Didn't let herself cry. Crying didn't help. Just made you weak. And she couldn't afford to be weak. Not now. Not ever. As the night wore on, exhaustion finally won. Amelia's eyes closed. She slept sitting up, head on her knees. Dreamed of dogs with red eyes and men with guns, and a river she could never reach. When she woke, Marcus was shaking her shoulder. "We gotta go. Now, what's wrong?" "I heard voices about a mile back. They're coming this way." There Amelia stood. Her feet screamed. She ignored them. "How many?" "Don't know." "At least 3, maybe more." They grabbed their things and moved fast. The sun just starting to rise, woods gray and shadowy. They pushed north through thick brush and over fallen trees. Behind them, the voices got louder. "There. I see tracks." "This way." Amelia and Marcus ran. Her feet bled again. Every step left red marks on the ground. She knew they could follow that. Knew they were leaving a trail. Nothing she could do about it. They came to a ravine. Deep and narrow steep sides. A small stream ran at the bottom. Marcus looked at her.
I can't. Yes, you can. On 3. 1, 2. Tanchari! They jumped.
Amelia hit the ground hard and rolled. Pain shot through her ankle. She bit down on her tongue to keep from screaming. Marcus landed next to her and immediately pulled her up. Keep moving. They stumbled along the bottom of the ravine, splashing through the stream. The water was cold. Felt good on Amelia's burning feet. They moved as fast as they could, but Amelia slowed. Her ankle swelling, limping badly. Behind them, the men reached the edge.
They went down there. Go around! Cut them off!
Marcus cursed. Looked at Amelia. Can you climb? She looked at the steep walls. I don't know. Try. They found a spot where the wall was slightly less steep. Marcus climbed first, then reached down to pull her up. She grabbed his hand and tried to climb. Feet slipped on wet rocks. Fell back down. Tried again. Made it halfway before her ankle gave out. Fell again. Voices getting closer. I can't. Amelia said, Go without me? No, you have to. Tell them about Thornhill. Tell them what's happening. Make them listen. Marcus climbed back down. Grabbed her shoulders. I ain't leaving you. We both make it or neither of us does. Nuog GTUP. Amelia looked into his eyes. Saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. Determination. Hope. Belief. She got up. Marcus helped her climb. Slow, painful, but they made it to the top. Pulled themselves over the edge and kept running. Behind them, the voices were close now. So close she could hear individual words.
I see them! Don't let him get away!
A gunshot rang out. The bullet hit a tree next to Amelia's head. Bark exploded. She ducked and kept running. Another shot. Went wide. Firing blind. Shooting at movement through the trees. Then they broke through the tree line. In front of them, a clearing. And in the clearing, houses. Real houses. Smoke rising from chimneys. People outside working gardens, hanging laundry. They stopped what they were doing and stared. Amelia and Marcus stumbled into the clearing. Behind them, the men burst through the trees. 3 of them. Saw the settlement and stopped. One raised his rifle.
Those 2 are runaways! They're our property!
Then old man stepped forward from the crowd. Black, white hair and beard. Walked with a cane, but his voice was strong. Ain't no property here. Just free people. And you're trespassing. We got a right to our. You got a right to leave right now before I get my rifle. More people stepped forward. Men and women. Some held tools. Some held guns. They formed a line between the 3 men and Amelia and Marcus. The 3 men looked at each other, outnumbered, knew it. This ain't over, one said.
Yes, it is,
the old man replied. The 3 men backed away slow, then turned and disappeared into the woods. Amelia's legs finally gave out completely. She fell to the ground. Marcus knelt beside her. The old man walked over and looked down at them. Where y'all come from? Thornhill Plantation, Marcus said, and there's 40 more people still there who need help. The old man's face went hard. Thornhill. That place is supposed to be gone. It ain't, and they're keeping people enslaved. Pretending the war never happened. Pretending freedom never came. The crowd murmured. The old man looked at Amelia. That true, girl. Amelia nodded. Couldn't speak. Too exhausted. Too broken. The old man turned to the crowd. Get the sheriff. Get the federal marshal. We're ending this today. 2 days later, Amelia sat on the porch of a small house in the settlement. Her feet were bandaged proper now. A woman named Clara had washed her wounds with soap and warm water, applied salve, wrapped them in clean white cloth. Clara had also given her a new dress, blue cotton with small yellow flowers. The first new thing Amelia had ever owned. She watched the road, been watching since dawn. Marcus sat next to her, watching too. They'll come, he said. The marshal gave his word. Words don't mean much, Amelia replied. These ones do. I made sure of it. The old man who'd saved them was named Samuel. Born enslaved in Alabama. Escaped at 16, made it north. After the war ended, he came back south and helped build this settlement. Called it New Hope. 40 families lived here now. Farmed, built, lived free. Samuel had sent word to the federal marshal in Jackson. Told him about Thornhill Plantation. About the people still enslaved there. About laws being broken. The marshal promised to investigate. Promises were easy. Action was hard. Amelia didn't let herself believe anything would change. She'd learned not to hope too much. Hope hurt worse than anything when it got taken away. But then she saw them. A group of men on horses coming down the road. At least 20 of them. The federal marshal rode in front. Dark suit, badge on his chest. Behind him, deputies and soldiers. Rifles and official papers. Samuel walked out to meet them. Amelia and Marcus followed. Marshal Clayton. I am. Got your message. I'm here to investigate these claims about Thornhill Plantation. Ain't claims, Samuel said. It's truth. And I got 2 witnesses right here can prove it. Marshal Clayton looked at Amelia and Marcus. His eyes lingered on Amelia. Just a child. Thin, scarred. Eyes older than they should be. You're from Thornhill? He asked her. Yes, sir. And you say people are still being held there as slaves? Yes, sir. 42 of them. Maybe 40. One now, if they punished anyone for me running. The marshal's jaw tightened. He turned to his men. Mount up. We ride now. I'm coming with you, Marcus said. Me too, Amelia added. The marshal looked at her. Girl, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Those people are my family. They need to see that somebody came back. They need to see that somebody cared. The marshal studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, but you stay behind us. This could get ugly. They gave Amelia and Marcus horses. Amelia had never ridden before. She learned fast. The group rode south toward Thornhill Plantation. Took most of the day. As they got closer, Amelia's heart started pounding. She didn't know what they'd find. Didn't know if anyone was still alive. They reached the plantation just before sunset. It looked exactly as she remembered. The big white house on the hill. The small shacks behind it. Fields stretching out in every direction. Smoke rose from chimneys. People were still there. Marshal Clayton raised his hand. Everyone stopped. Spread out. Surround the property. Nobody leaves until I say so. The men moved into position. The marshal rode up to the main house with 6 deputies behind him. Amelia and Marcus stayed back, but close enough to see. Thomas Thornhill stepped out onto the porch. Large man. Red face. Gray hair. Held a glass of whiskey in one hand. Looked at the marshal and smiled. Can I help you, gentlemen? I'm Federal Marshal Clayton. I'm here to investigate reports of illegal enslavement on this property. Thornhill's smile didn't move. I don't know what you're talking about. I run a farm here. My workers are paid employees. Then you won't mind if I speak with them. Not at all. But you're wasting your time. But the marshal dismounted and walked toward the shacks. Amelia followed at a distance, heart beating so hard she thought it might break through her chest. The people gathered outside now. Heard the horses. Saw the men with guns and badges, stood in a group silent, afraid. Amelia saw faces she knew. Ruth was there. Older, thinner, but alive. Ruth saw Amelia and her eyes went wide. The marshal stepped forward. My name is Marshal Clayton. I'm a federal officer. I need to ask you all some questions. Are you being held here against your will? No one spoke. They looked at each other. Looked at Thornhill standing on his porch. Looked at Cyrus Gann, who'd appeared from somewhere with his rifle. Are you free to leave whenever you want? The marshal asked. Silence. Are you paid for your work? Nothing. Amelia couldn't take it anymore. She stepped forward. They're scared, she said loud. They're scared 'cause, if they tell the truth, They'll be punished. They've been punished their whole lives for telling the truth. She walked toward the group. Ruth reached out and grabbed her hand. "Amelia," Ruth whispered. "Child, what you doing? What I should have done a long time ago." Amelia turned to face Marshal Clayton. "These people been enslaved here since before I was born. Mr. Thornhill's father started it. He kept us hidden, told us the war never ended, told us we were still property. He beat us, worked us, killed people who tried to run. I'm only 12 years old and I've seen 6 people murdered here, 6 people buried in unmarked graves in those woods." The marshal's face went pale.
"That's a lie,"
Thornhill shouted from the porch.
"That girl's a liar and a thief. She ran away and now she's trying to cause trouble." "If it's a lie,"
Amelia said, "then why'd you send dogs to kill me? Why'd Cyrus Gann hunt me like an animal? Why do these people have scars on their backs from whips?" She turned to Ruth. "Show him." Ruth hesitated, then slowly turned around and lifted the back of her shirt. Her back was covered in thick raised scars. Old ones and new ones. Years of beatings carved into her skin. One by one, others turned and showed their backs. Men, women, children, all marked, all broken. Marshal Clayton's hands balled into fists. "Mr. Thornhill," he said quietly, "you're under arrest." "For what?" "These people work for me. For illegal enslavement, for kidnapping, for murder, and for violating the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution." Thornhill threw his whiskey glass. It shattered on the porch steps.
"You can't do this. This is my property. These are my—"
"These are human beings," the marshal interrupted. "And they're free. They've been free since 1865, and you've been breaking federal law for 30 years. He nodded to his deputies. "Arrest him, and arrest that overseer too." The Cyrus John tried to run. Didn't make it 10 feet before 2 soldiers tackled him to the ground. Thornhill was dragged off his porch in handcuffs. Screamed and cursed the whole way. The people from the shacks watched in stunned silence. Then someone started crying. Then someone else. Then everyone, not sad tears. Something else, relief, disbelief, fear, joy, all mixed together. Ruth pulled Amelia into her arms and held her tight. "You came back," Ruth whispered. "You came back for us. I promised myself I would," Amelia said. "If I made it, if I survived, I'd come back." The marshal approached them. "Miss, I'm gonna need statements from everyone here. It's gonna take time, but I promise you, justice will be served. These men will face trial, and all of you will be compensated for what was done to you." "We don't want money," Ruth said. "We want to be left alone to live our lives." "You'll get that too. I give you my word." Over the next 3 days, the marshal and his men documented everything, took statements, found the graves in the woods, collected evidence, arrested 3 more men who'd helped Thornhill maintain his illegal operation. The people of Thornhill Plantation were given 2 choices: stay and work the land as free people with ownership rights, or leave and go wherever they wanted. Most chose to stay. It was the only home they'd ever known. But now it would be theirs. Samuel helped them set up a council to govern themselves, helped them file legal paperwork to claim ownership of the land, helped them understand what freedom actually meant. Amelia chose to stay too, not at Thornhill. Couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. Too many memories. But she stayed at New Hope. Clara and her husband took her in, treated her like a daughter. Marcus stayed too. He and Amelia became close friends. He taught her to read. She learned fast. Within 6 months, she could read better than most adults. She read everything she could find. Books, newspapers, legal documents. Wanted to understand the world. Wanted to make sure no one could ever lie to her again. Thomas Thornhill's trial took place 8 months later. Amelia testified. So did Ruth. So did 12 other people from the plantation. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts, Thornhill was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He died there after 18 months. Heart attack. Cyrus Gann got 15 years, served 12 before being released. Disappeared after that. No one knew where he went. No one cared. The 3 Rottweilers were never found. Some said they ran wild in the woods. Others said they were put down. Amelia never asked, didn't want to know. 5 years after her escape, Amelia stood on the porch of her own small house in New Hope. 17 now. Taller, stronger. The scars on her feet had faded but never disappeared. She wore them as reminders. Ruth lived 2 houses down. Older now but healthier. Smiled more. Started a small garden and spent her days tending it. Said it felt good to grow something for herself instead of someone else. Marcus had married a woman from the settlement. They had a baby boy. Marcus worked as a carpenter, helped build new houses as more people arrived. New Hope was growing. Amelia worked as a teacher, taught children to read and write. Taught them their rights, taught them their history, made sure they knew what had been done to their grandparents and great-grandparents. Made sure they knew what freedom cost. One evening, a young girl came to her after class. Miss Amelia. Yes. Is it true you ran from dogs? It's true. Were you scared? Amelia knelt down to look the girl in the eyes. I was terrified every second. But I ran anyway. You want to know why? The girl nodded. 'Cause being scared don't mean you can't be brave. Being scared just means you're still alive. And as long as you're alive, you can choose. You can choose to give up, or you can choose to keep going. I chose to keep going. And that's what made all the difference. The girl smiled and ran off to join her friends. Amelia watched her go, thought about that night 5 years ago. The dogs, the darkness, the terror. Thought about the choice she made, the choice that changed everything. Thought about the 42 people who were finally free because one 12-year-old girl decided she'd rather die running than live in chains. Thought about all the people who would never know their names. All the people who ran and didn't make it. All the people who died believing freedom was just a lie, and she made herself a promise. The same promise she made every day. To remember them, to honor them, to make sure their suffering meant something, to make sure it never happened again. 2. The sun set over New Hope. Smoke rose from chimneys. Children played in the streets. People sat on their porches and talked and laughed. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was, but it was theirs, and it was free. And that was everything. To freedom is not given. It is taken. It is fought for. It is earned with blood and pain and sacrifice. But once you have it, once you truly understand what it means, you can never go back. You can never unsee the truth. You can never unknow that you have the right to choose your own path. The greatest weapon against oppression is not violence. It is the refusal to accept the lie. The refusal to believe you are less than human. The refusal to accept that your chains are permanent. Amelia was 12 years old when she learned this lesson. She was small and weak and afraid, but she had something her captors could never take away. The knowledge that she deserved better. And the courage to act on it. That courage saved 43 lives, including her own. And it proved something that tyrants have always feared, that one person, armed with nothing but truth and determination, can break a system built on lies. Amelia ran into darkness, not knowing if she would survive. But she ran toward light, toward freedom, toward hope. And she made it. Not because she was special, because she refused to accept that she wasn't.